last session, smart cities, building more responsive cities across India and funding through challenges. Because of some time constraints, some of our speakers have left. I will request Mr. Pradeep Udas, he is the Managing Director KPMG, to just brief the audience on this issue, smart cities.
Thank you. So it was very invigorating speech by our Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister. I'm from Rajkot, so I'm Gujarati avde and to hear him with the clarity and the vision, really, I think we are on to something which will finally get implemented. Many times there's a lot of talk and things don't happen. I was just thinking about smart city, and as many speakers before me talked about, that it's good to have the law, which the law enforcement. But like you said, you're not interested in just giving challenge. You would like people to, through awareness, become better citizens. And if you think about it, the smart city concept is not new to Indian heritage. In many ways, we have technology now, true. A lot of things have changed. But if you look at the ancient cities and civilization of India, it was very much a balanced society. Even if you see the kind of the way the nature and people living together in harmony. Even the old civilization, you can see that the waste management, those systems were there, etc. So it is not really, there's a new term, and of course a lot of things have changed, the scale has changed, the way of doing work has changed, but the principles still remain the same, that living in harmony with the nature, with each other, as a civilized society. And I would like to touch on a few points on this, that while Rajkot has to become a smart city over the years, it is part of 100 smart cities. So how does Rajkot play in with the rest of the cities which are there is important. There are some strengths of Rajkot, in ball bearing and many those areas, those industry sectors, they will be there. Of course, Rajkot can be a tourist hub, and one of the things with Pani sir, I discussed that there are a lot of sportsmen which have come from Rajkot. Whether you take Jadejas, etc. So can you envision maybe doing Rajkot being a sports hub, with having a sports complex, etc. So each city has to have its kind of identity, and collectively we should kind of think about that. The other part, which is a big question, and I think one of the speakers in the previous session talked about, is how do you finance? It's a major cost, and this is where KPMG, is got a lot of experience globally. We worked with cities like Singapore and many other places where we've raised financing for a city. For example, doing municipal bonds. There are ways there are some agencies which are multilateral, some bilateral, and also so the whole finance structure has to be created, and the right kind of ROI, return on investment, has to be provided. Then it is possible to raise funding through new sources. Now that's where we should think about it, and of course KPMG will be happy to help. I had a few other points in my presentation, but today we are not making presentations, so I will just kind of touch on them. I think we talked about smart city, but what is beyond it? Once we have the basic infrastructure in place, the transportation and the waste management, etc. What does one look to do? So it's better to start looking at it. Just keep in mind that a city will keep evolving. So it's not like an end point. So you need to have systems in the city where you keep taking opinion of the either other cities, other consultants, or even the citizens and then keep evolving. That's something you should keep in mind. And lastly, I would like to end by saying that instead of being reactive, the administration will have to become proactive, which our honorable police commissioners had talked about, that how they are anticipating based on some of the things they see and then take action on it. So far, government has been a slow adopter of technology, and it really follows the industry. But there is an opportunity through this smart city mission where government takes the first action and adopts the technology, and then in industry. So we're going to talk about the IoT, etc. in today's session. So I would like to end with that let government take the lead, be in the forefront, and let other industry follow from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. We all know without financial support, we become totally helpless. Finance is needed. On that, in our country, you are talking about the Singapore, no doubt they are creating money, they are creating fund from their bonds. But here in also something is going on with the government as well as the corporation, because the corporation is the body. We are totally relying on the corporation here, because what we want, any fund, any grant, the corporation is also helping us because they are the smart. So now I would like to invite Mr. Jayesh Haryani. He is the chairman INI Design Studio, just to enlighten the session on the topic of smart city.
Thank you. I have a privilege for a second time, so thank you again. I thought I was done, but I can go on in the first time. I think pretty much what we have been hearing since morning about smart, and when I just look back, what does smart mean? Because for all of us, smart means something, and it will be different. If you ask a villager, the definition of smart would be different than a citizen, and so forth. So it's very hard to grapple defining the smart for a city and lakhs of citizens. That's the number one that always we face, that we need to get this right when we want to define smartness for a city and for people. Because being an architect and planner, technology is a hardware. Ultimately, we focus on people aspect, the softer aspect. And that's where the bigger challenge is, that technology, you install it and it generally does its job. If it's rightly discovered technology and installed rightly, it does its job. But to really transfer the behavior aspect of the people, because we design for people, and many times I keep saying that most of the time we keep talking about, okay, have we designed for the right transportation? Have we designed for cars? If we design for cars, we'll get more cars. If we design for people and happiness, then we'll get more happy people. So that's the difference lens that we generally use. Because each one of us has a lens. So our eyes are that way, that okay, what really people want, how we can make them a notch above in their livability. So that's one focus that we generally do, and we work with a lot of cities, a lot of community. Each community has a lot of component, like a project that currently we are working on, Visakhapatnam. When we hear the fisherman community, it's a totally different viewpoint than we hear the developer's perspective or the administration perspective. And how to blend all this perspective and come up with a planning formula that kind of takes everything more synergetically. So that's the challenge that we keep, and every city has something unique that we have to find and nurture that uniqueness to plan for forward, to create the employment, to create the happiness, and so on and so forth. So for us, the smartness is how do we look at the software aspect, which is a behavioral aspect, people aspect, and how do we really blend all of the good aspects of the people to really improve the livability in general. And all of the technologies, all of the other aspects, we really have to use wisely and what is right for that particular city at that time, because technologies changes rapidly. And the financing aspect, if you go out for financing something, there are no real definitions for some of the technologies to get the finance, because they are very new, they are not tested and not adapted to a particular region or particular city. Maybe it's a well working in Western cities. So how the financial institutions also buy into these technologies, how we transfer those technologies into Indian context, and all that has to be part of this to make it real. Otherwise it just stays in planning if we don't really address the other aspect of financing it. So that's about it, I think. But I'm excited that this is happening. Since my time is up, it's happening in Rajkot, and with the Commissioner Saab and all other team members, we are working deliberately and hearing as part of the team to work on this smart city project, and we are fortunate to really be part of this. So I really thank for those opportunities and love participating and contributing to Rajkot city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayji. Now, I will invite Mr. Nitin Suri. Is the AA Ecom. Just also you share your views on the smart city.
I won't take it.
Hi friends, this is Nitin. So I will not take much of a time because already the critical aspect has already been discussed by most of the people, that is the financing. And the small background is that I am the financial expert who is working for Ludhiana Smart City. So today in the morning when we were hearing the CM speech, his vision was that we should give better and high quality service to all the people who are living in Rajkot. So for this, the Smart City RS deal has been formed and funds has been provided to this Smart City by the Rajkot Municipal Corporation as well as the contribution from the state government. With these funds, we will be able to create a good infrastructure for the Rajkot people. But the real challenge which I feel will come not for Rajkot Smart City, even for all the 100 smart cities who will be coming up, is how to sustain these assets, how to make sure that we are able to give good quality on a continuous service. And for this, we need a good maintenance of these kind of assets, and for which we need revenue and funds on a continuous basis. So for these, my suggestion and my advice always is that we have to structure the projects in such a way that we should get some good revenue from those projects, and we can monetize those revenue to make the better availability for those services on a continuous on a continuous basis. There are not some set rules, but there are different models that we can use, and we are using in some of our smart cities, and which we will like to continue if given like on this project also. And because the real challenge will always be to get a good finance, continuous finance, so that we are in a position to sustain these assets and give the better services to the people. So whether it could be through private participation or through some innovative taxation procedures, or it could be through issuance of bonds, or it could be from funding from multilateral agencies. So we have to take everyone into account so as to get regular continuous finance to sustain these assets and to make sure that the services which we have envisaged for the people are given on a continuous basis. I think this is the challenge that we have to face and we are going to face, but we should overcome this challenge so that, in my opinion, funds should not be the constraint. So we have to make sure that financing is taken care of in a better way and always on a continuous basis. So that's all which I like to say, and hope so that we get good finances on a continuous basis through our models, through innovative techniques that we can put in, and make that these services are given to the Rajkot people on a continuous basis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nitin ji. So our three eminent speakers, Mr. Pradeep ji, Jayesh ji, and Nitin ji, they share their views on smart city and how to make our city smart, as well as how to sustain all the various projects which are we doing for making our city smart. So now we have Mr. Gautam Madan. He has to make some small presentation on the Trinity of IoT ecosystem, smart building, smart infrastructure, smart security solution.
Good morning. I don't know if there is a presentation. Good morning once again. My name is Gautam. I head the marketing and strategy for Honeywell Building Solutions, which is the business which delivered the ICCC project. We have been hearing a lot about Honeywell, the work that we have done as part of the Rajkot IBA project. So what I'm going to talk about in the agenda, as you saw, that right, we are talking about IoT, we are talking about obviously digital solutions, smart technology for smart buildings, smart infrastructure, smart cities. What I will do is, in the next 7-8 minutes that I have, I prepared for 15, but I'm going to crunch this. So I'm going to move fast and I'm going to reduce the scope. So I'm not going to focus a lot on smart buildings, I'm going to mostly focus on smart cities. But Honeywell obviously is very focused on smart buildings, and smart buildings is very critical to deliver smart cities, because you can't have smart cities where buildings are not smart, right? They have to be sustainable. But what I will do is I will just focus more on smart cities this time, and I will skip some of the slides. Before I get into my presentation, I will just talk a little bit about what we do as Honeywell and our commitment to India. So it's not moving. Do I need to point it somewhere? Okay, so I will continue. So Honeywell in India, we have a 8 decades legacy. We're not a new company. Obviously, we are about a $1 billion. We are a technology company. There is a huge commitment that we have made to India. We have about 16,000 people here in India as employees. Out of those 16,000, 8,000 are engineers, and we have 3 mega R&D centers supporting not only R&D efforts that are required for India, but also across the globe. So that's the commitment that Honeywell has made, and that's why we are a pretty reliable technology partner, because we have technology which gets developed in India for India. So that's pretty important. The other part. Okay, can we move to the next slide? I am not moving it, so I don't know. Yep. So we are talking about IoT, right? So what is this IoT thing is not new. This has been there for long. It's called Internet of Things. Things have been there. Internet has been there for long, and we have been just talking quite a lot about it in the last 4 to 5 years. We are hearing a lot about IoT. And it's simple, couple of reasons. One, we obviously know, the data prices have gone down. The technology has become pretty reliable. And there's that ubiquitous device that you have in your pocket. Everybody, I'm sure, is going to have a smartphone here. So it's become pretty accessible to everybody. And that's why we see a massive change and a massive transformation that's happening. But it's not technology for the sake of technology. We call it Internet of Things, but I would like to actually call it Inside of Things. So I don't know if you click again, you will get that. Right? So the reason I want to call it Inside of Things is because technology, not for the sake of technology. I think everybody mentioned here, we're actually looking at technology to solve some real problems. So real problems which basically will improve the, provide an outcome which will improve the quality of life of the people, at least in the context of smart cities. So we're really talking about insights that will help authorities take the right decisions to actually improve the quality of life of people. And this transformation is everywhere. Even if I have a kid at home, my son, 5 years old, he has this device, he keeps playing, he knows it much better than I do, and he just learned on his own. And we are talking about this generation, and we used to talk about generation gaps, like 20 years, maybe 30 years is a generation gap. Now it has got crunched. It's less than 5 years, actually. 5 years is one generation. So you can imagine when these people will grow up and they will start using all the services, their expectations are very different. They want certain things in a very different way. And actually all of us want certain things in a very different way. I don't even remember how I used to book my cab 5 years back for the airport. Now I know Rajkot doesn't have Ola and Uber. I think I tried it yesterday. I realized it's still not there. But some of the cities, I just don't even know how to now book a cab if I don't have Ola. And it took me a while to understand, kind of recall, how I used to do it a couple of years back. And we're talking about this generation which is going to come and have very different expectations. And that's why we see this transformation happening. It's very gradual, we don't notice it. But if you step back and see where it was 5 years versus now, there's a huge change, a huge transformation that has happened. This transformation is everywhere. So we're talking about businesses. Businesses are moving pretty fast. There is a lot of change that's happening, the way the business used to operate. Now even the small even stores are using technology, right, to automate a lot of the stuff that they used to do. They're receiving digital payments. We're talking about technology that obviously is changing. We're talking about obviously IoT, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about blockchain. All that is happening on the technology front is becoming very reliable, very cost effective, and all of that is really adding to that transformation bit. And then we are talking about this workforce of tomorrow. This workforce which is, I don't know how many of you have heard of millennials, but this generation that's coming, right? They almost, you can see in an office 5 generations sitting together and very different expectations. So they have a very different expectation. After what you get exposed to in your personal life, you want that everywhere. You want the government also to deliver the service in the same way, because that's your expectation, that's the change that's happening. So can you just move to the next slide? You can skip some of the slides because I want to go to the smart cities and go, what really is a smart city? I will skip some of the slides that I put together for smart building in interest of time. So can you just quickly move a couple of slides to smart cities? Please, a few more clicks. Yep. More. So this was all interesting stuff. You can see it's running here. It's all smart buildings. Can you quickly move a few more clicks? Go to smart cities, you will see smart cities there. So what really makes a smart city, right? So, yeah, this is the one. One more. Yeah, what makes a city really smart? So everybody has a different definition. If you ask people, what smart city is, they will come up with their definition. That's the problem. It's just huge, it's vast. Everybody has an interpretation. But I think there are some common things, and I've tried to capture that in this slide. Smart, obviously there is technology component to it, but technology, again, not for the sake of technology. It should help you, give you enough information, the right information to take the right decisions, to improve the quality of the life of the people. I think that's what we're talking about. It's all centered around people. So the outcomes that we're looking at should improve the quality of life of the people. And that's where you actually see this all technology that any city is deploying today. Obviously there's a lot of that IoT that's happening, which is over the internet, using all that cloud technology, but delivering at the end of the day those outcomes that we are looking at. So if you click again, you will get that. Can you click next, please? Yep. So what is really quality of life, right? Quality of life, everybody's talking about quality of life. And again, if you ask everybody, they will come up with a definition of quality of life. And this is a great framework that I found. This is actually from McKinsey, research done by McKinsey Global Institute. They put together 7 aspects of quality of life. And as you can see, it's safety, time, health, environment, connectedness, jobs, and cost of living. So this is really the 7 aspects broadly, and I actually like this framework because most of the stuff that you see happening around smart cities, and we looked at a lot of DPRs, development project reports from a lot of these smart cities, what they are planning. You can map the solutions that people are thinking across, even not in India, but across the globe to one of these areas, right? And some of the solutions can cut across different aspects of quality of life. So essentially, if you keep clicking, what you can really see is in case of Rajkot project, if you really talk about safety element and time, it got really the priority in terms of the quality of aspects so far, at least in the first initial phases. So we're talking about city surveillance, obviously related to safety. Sir just mentioned about the incident that happened last night and how it really helped them. It's a huge deterrent, and I think Mr. Pani also talked about the reduction in the crime rate. So that's what really the technology is doing in delivering the outcomes for that safety piece. Then comes the time piece, right, which is the time that the citizens would save by deploying this technology. So we're talking about smart transit, we are talking about traffic management. So all of that, more disciplined traffic means more effective commuting, less time that you will spend in jams. So that's the outcome that is going to get delivered. And there's a lot of solutions that different cities are thinking about, which obviously I don't have time to go into all of these, but there's a lot of solutions around which touch these different aspects of life, which improve the quality of life. Can we move to the next one, please? At the end of the day, and this is my last slide, actually second last slide, I represent a technology company, and it's very important that when we are thinking of these solutions, what is the criteria that one should keep in mind when selecting a particular technology? So what are the key criteria? I think the first one is the scalability, right? So we can start something small, but it can grow as the city is growing or the requirements are growing, right? So we start with 100 junctions, we can add 100 more, 100 more, and it should be a pretty scalable and modular technology. The second one, it should be retrofittable. We have legacy systems that we need to talk to. There are different systems come from different vendors, and they all need to speak, as Sir was talking about, right? So one example, there's one system which is giving you a camera feed, there's another system which is giving you a database of, let's say, cars, where you can pull the information, and they all need to talk to each other to make it very effective, and the response time to be much quicker. Otherwise, they're all separate systems. So they all need to talk to each other, and that's what I'm really talking about, adaptability, retrofittable. The last one is a sustainable. So it's not about just putting these systems in place, but they need to work for next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. So there need to be, that focus on the life cycle. There needs to be not just the focus on life cycle, but are there specific monetization models that one can think of to fund it, right? So financing is an issue all the time to maintain these systems. So are there ways to fund this? Not always, but sometimes there could be a possibility. And at the end of the day, you need that technology partner to put all of these pieces together, because this is pretty complex, by the way. So if you don't select the right technology partner that has the capability to deliver this, then it's going to be a big challenge, and that's where we fit in. The last one is just a slide on the Rajkot highway project. What are the systems that we delivered? I think I'm not going to go into details. We have already seen it, but really proud of the work that the team has done here, and obviously I'm happy to hear how it is helping the police in improving the quality of life, the safety for the citizens. So thank you once again, and I think that's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Gautam, for sharing your views on the Trinity of the IoT ecosystem. Now we have also Mr. Sumit Joshi. He is the director PwC. PwC is the consultant for the smart city. So I would like to invite Mr. Joshi to share his view.
Thank you, sir. And for a change, I don't have a presentation, so I really like to make it quick. Essentially, when we talk about Internet of Things and technology deployment, first let's clear out a myth. Technology is not a silver bullet solution. What is important is institutionalization of technology solutions in an urban local body. When we deploy these smart city solutions across cities in India, and we are doing this for 22 cities in India, what we've realized is it's important to collaborate with the government officials, identify what are their real challenges, develop those use cases as to how technology will really solve their problems, and then design a solution. So take a approach which is not technology centric, which is business centric, identify what are their challenges, and then devise technology solutions. That's the first message that I want to convey. The second one is I want to redefine the term Internet of Things. It's not about Internet of Things anymore. It's about deriving insights out of things. So just a technology sensor deployed out there in the field is not going to be very helpful, because you'll have truckloads of data available at your data centers and no way to analyze that data. What is important from a client stakeholder is to derive insights out of the technology sensors. Like what Commissioner Sir said earlier, while you have surveillance cameras deployed all throughout the city, if you could identify patterns of vehicles or movement of vehicles which are hotlisted or blacklisted throughout the city to solve a crime and derive insights out of sensors, that is what is relevant to a city. So let's deploy sensors out there in the city, but more importantly, identify those machine learning, data analytics solutions through which you can derive meaning out of that information and give insights to the decision makers so that they can act fast. What is going to be important in cities going forward is how do you analyze truckloads of data that you have and create actionable information. Because in a few years from now, when we deploy technology-based solutions, you're going to be overwhelmed with multiple alerts coming out of those sensors. If the command center operator is going to have 3,000 alerts getting generated every minute, he doesn't know where to focus on. So as a community of people who are supporting urban local bodies, it's important for us to derive those artificial intelligence driven solutions and create those insights. That's the second message. The third one is we are getting into a phase wherein we are deploying a lot of capital expense intensive solutions. So we are deploying cameras and each of the camera maybe cost about $1 lakh or so, but the ecosystem around it, right from the pole to network bandwidth to people, costs a lot. So all these solutions, today when we go to a city and think of deploying a command center, the first number that comes to mind is it's going to be 100 crore project. Do we really need those capital intensive sensors? All of us today carry a smartphone. That in itself is a device that can enable 3 or 4 functions. It can record videos, it can take photographs, it can record audio messages, it can sense vibrations. So all those things together can give you multiple sensors packaged in one single box. Why do we really need to deploy those cameras, those vehicle tracking systems all across the city? Why can't we collaborate with our citizens so that we reduce the capital expenditures that the city is spending? This is where we introduce a new dimension to the traditional PPPs. When we talk about public-private partnership, let's also introduce people into this dimension and start using the devices that people have, which is the smartphones. So 2 or 3 use cases come into mind when we talk about how people can start using the smartphones. A lot of cities in India have potholes which have become a big problem, right? Now, most of our Android or Apple devices come along with vibration sensors. If we could record the extent of vibrations that we encounter on a daily basis, we could easily create a pothole map of the entire city. That can be passed over to the urban local body so that they know exactly where those potholes are. It will not just help reduce the traffic scenario, but also save lives. The number of lives that are lost in a city like Mumbai because of potholes goes upwards of hundreds on a yearly basis. And that can be resolved by just mapping the city through the smartphone devices that we have. Also, the issues around driving in wrong lanes, violating red lights can also be resolved through people and people doing proactive policing and identifying those violators and then collaborating with police. Today the likes of Google and Amazon are using audio-enabled commands in terms of Google Pebble and Amazon Alexa to disrupt the way online shopping is done. Can urban local bodies also use the audio signals emanating from phones to change the way governance is done? Can a citizen really address his grievances through an audio input to the urban local body? Can we use the ambient noise that a citizen is encountering while he's navigating through the city to make interesting decisions about our traffic or mobility patterns? So those are the three messages that I wanted to convey. The first one was about the cities themselves collaborating with their own departments and identifying use cases that will enable them to identify the right technology solutions. The second one was about moving beyond the paradigm of Internet of Things and getting into insights out of things to make those action-oriented decisions, which will come in about 2 or 3 years when we have an overdose of data emanating out of these devices. And third is about people as sensors and using the cell phones that people have to make informed decisions and reducing the capex expenditure for cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumit. You are the leading agency making city smart city. So you have all the suggestions you have made, you have to apply. You have to convince the system. Thank you. Now we have Mr. Mahesh Goyal. He is very sober and very intelligent personality, and he was also GIPL. He is the CEO GIPL, and GIPL is our consultant in the CCTV network. So I would like to request Mr. Mahesh Goyal to share his view.
Good morning and thank you very much, sir. It is indeed my pleasure because I was connected with Rajkot Municipal Corporation since last 20 years. I was Director IT over here and now I am a Chief Executive Officer GIPL. When we are talking about different technologies, we have to think out of box basically. Till the time what we are doing, we are just concentrating on re-engineering of processes. Instead of that, we have to think on re-imagination. So that is a basic difference between re-engineering and re-imagination. So once you start re-imagination, your process will become a path for you to go further. Definitely with a technology, you can do whatever you want. Even I can say your thinking is your limitation. Whatever you think, you will be able to complete with the help of technology. But if you talk about IoT, that was coined in 1999 by British entrepreneur, and since then this IoT word is booming. Initially in 2013, some 7.9 billion devices were connected through internet. In 2020, the device connected will be 28.1 billion. This is also approximate estimation, but it will be more than that. So there will be certain constraints, certain limitations, and certainly huge volume of data that will throughout the system. So ultimately in IoT, what is important? If you talk about IoT, then first one is internet, second one is device, and third one is data analytics. So you should have a complete decision support system to analyze and get output out of these IoT sensors. So sensors are now become very cheap. You can use it at any level, but what data you are getting, you should get proper information to take a decision. So that is more important. As I have worked with Rajkot Municipal Corporation for more than 20 years, so I can say that in each and every field, be it parks and gardens, be it water distribution, because Rajkot is a scarcity area, water scarcity area. So ultimately, based on our requirement, Rajkot can concentrate on water pipeline, water leakage, water turbidity, and other aspects, so that their problems can be resolved immediately. And the ultimate aim of any technology is removal or reducing the human intervention. So basically, if you remove human intervention, then your system will be sustainable. I repeatedly say that if you are working in IT field, innovative ideas implementation is very easy, but the sustainability is equally difficult. So you have to have a system which is sustainable. So once you work on a technology or IoT, you should concentrate on a sustainability aspect. If we are talking about, say for example, if we are talking about building a smart building, normally it takes 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. We know within 3 months technology is obsolete. So we have to think about the scalability of using a technology also. So these are certain parameters which we have to keep in mind while we are designing a technology. Another thing is, if you are connecting 28.1 billion devices through internet, so definitely there will be a problem of security. So we have to concentrate on security also. So to make a system very sustainable, you should have a scalability, you should have a security and other aspects. I will not take much time due to constraint of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahesh bhai. We have a last speaker, Mr. Arun Mahesh is the District Development Officer, Ahmedabad, and earlier that he was here as a Deputy Municipal Commissioner as well as the CEO of Smart City. Would like to request him to share his view.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure to come back to Rajkot and see such a familiar faces with whom I used to work since the past 1.5 years. Thank you for the opportunity. I would thank the chairman, Rajkot Smart City Limited, and the fellow team who have invited me to this August gathering. Happy to see familiar faces along with me. First of all, I would just cut it short because the paucity of time. A huge successful project of ICCC and phase 1 of highway project. The implementation success story goes to Anupam sir, who has spearheaded this project from all sides, because at such a senior level, an IG rank officer or a commissioner of police of a city, visiting the field after 6 o'clock. We all used to start after 6 and then end up say 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night. He is an inspiration for all of us, for all the officers. It would have been possible without sir, because sir, Pani sir, me, Sanjay and all of us used to be running around with the Honeywell team, and then we used to, sorry for mentioning in a different way, but we used to be kicking them every day. In the sense, why not getting things done? So it was a happy success project, and I'm happy to see the success stories right now, which Anupam sir has been explaining to all of us. So I hope Rajkot soars ahead with this success story. Being the former CEO of Rajkot Smart City, it's been a pleasure to be back. And I would reiterate certain points which I would like to conclude, as sir has also requested me. The first most important thing is, we need not innovate just for the sake of innovation. We or all of us, when we get an opportunity to do something, we all say we'll do something new. So for the sake of doing new things, we jump into the conclusion that we need to innovate. We need to do things differently, or we need to show up things which others have not done. So we end up somewhere, which doesn't give a sustainability product. So as Shamik is smiling, what I would reiterate is, because in Ahmedabad I am also looking after the Dholera Smart City right now, which is to be the next big major thing for push for Gujarat. So a similar parallel with ACOM, who is doing the project there. I would like to reiterate certain things for Rajkot, which if possible the Rajkot Smart City team can take it further on, if you would wish to note it down. Thanks to Pani sir, I was just mentioning you sir, that thanks for inviting me back to Rajkot. The point I would like to reiterate the same thing which we are also conceptualizing in Dholera also, but as far as Rajkot is concerned, I'm happy to see this ABD plan which was launched today, which we were fighting for say 6 months ago.
how would we conceive, and thanks to Pani sir that he has spearheaded it and successfully launched it today, and that too with the hands of the Honorable CM. The Honorable CM, Chief Minister, reiterated one thing during the last Chintan Shibir, happiness index. Happiness and the perception of the public is what matters. We say that we did this project, we've implemented say 100 crores, 200 crores of project, but what is the end result is the happiness which has made a difference in the life of the common man who's traveling on the road or who's taking a new water connection, or we say that we have tried to reduce the water wastage. Ultimately the feedback comes from the citizen, the change should be from within, out of which the feedback comes from the common man. So we need to change the practical approach of the term municipality. Earlier municipality was used as a retrograde term saying that chalta hai tax. But now it is the same municipality which is spearheading these smart city projects. So we need to reinvent in the sense that we need not reinvent for the sake of it, but reinvent for the need of the common man. So the perception of public matters. So we need to take up projects which is most importantly, which could change the perception of the public, saying that, okay, now Rajkot doesn't stay the way it was say 10 years back, and the new smart city which is coming up in the ABD area of say, which would be like a result of a completely greenfield project. So what needs to be accommodated into that, my request to ACOM and INI Designs, because you are a part of the designing team, would be, first one would be, a major attraction. We were all thinking of a convention center or a trans stadia or a trans arena, which would be like a mascot for that new smart city. Unless you don't create a mascot picture, to get investments and attracting investments would be a big problem. So PPP financing is very important, as you said, and PPP finance can come once you create something iconic. So you try to create something iconic which would attract more investments. Yeah, a sports academy would be a good option. I think Commissioner Sir would also think about it. Second thing is regarding the smart buildings which you would be making up, because I think 1/3 or 1/4 of the area would be comprising of buildings, which we need to get it LEED certified, and one major factor would be smart recycled water. Use of recycled water from the STPs, say some secondary water or tertiary treated water, and dual pumping that water into those buildings. So that would reduce a lot of energy consumption, as well as reinvent the way we use water, like Singapore. I'm sure the waste to energy team has gone to Singapore and see how the water treatment is done. In Singapore and Israel, the water which is used being is the toilets, is the same water that we drink in the tap. So there is no bottled water there. We drink the same tap water and we use the same water in the toilets. So for Indians, we feel difficult when we say we are drinking the toilet water, but it is as good as such a clean energy. For the already implemented Honeywell project of ICCC and phase 1 of the highway project, I would say the next vision ahead could be data monetization. Whatever data has been collected right now, you need to monetize that data, probably sell the data, or use that data for getting a revenue. Apart from data monetization, what Shamik has also said was data mining. You mine the data that has been not the way Cambridge Analytica is doing, but the way Rajkot wants it. What kind of data could be sold? What kind of data could be mined for the benefit of Rajkotians? Because the Rajkot crowd is predominantly an aspirational crowd. It's not a completely city crowd like what you would expect in Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi. Say 50+% of the population comes from the villages. They come to settle down in the name of urban migration. So what are their aspirations which they had never got in the villages? We need to think on that mode. We cannot invent Rajkot like Gurgaon or Bangalore. We need to understand the basics, and we need to get down to the basics. So getting a water project itself, the old engineers would accept getting a 24-hour water supply project in Kothari and Bavdi is a challenge, and we should not talk about IoT at that point of view. So which is most relevant right now, and which could relate to the new smart city greenfield, should be the most relevant topic, which I think both the design team should take into matter. And smart video analytics, instead of going for more of sensors, from the already built-in ICCC, we had 13 departments integrated. I'm sure RSCDL would take it ahead to say another 20 departments. And then once everything is on board, we should start using video analytics. Then as it would help the police also, in the sense now what happens, we zoom in, we and the chalan is generated automatically. Let's go to the next level and start chalaning them. I think that would really benefit the police also. And I would reiterate and I would request Sir also, the Commissioner Sir, to get something iconic for Rajkot in the new Greenfield City. We would also be happy to associate if it is possible. And thanks to the team who has given this wonderful opportunity. At the end of it, I would again reiterate the same thing which the Honorable Chief Minister has said. Perception of public needs to change. We need to work towards that goal. How to change the perception about Rajkot, how to change the perception about Rajkot Municipal Corporation services to the public, how to change the perception about Rajkot Police to the public, which I'm sure Sir is doing great. And at the end of the day, we need not be the sixth major economy saying that we have reached the GDP at the sixth major level, we have crossed Japan and France. But rather we should think about simple things for Rajkot, like what Bhutan is doing, gross happiness index. Whether the public are content, whether the public are safe in the city, whether the public are happy with the municipal services that we are offering. So thank you very much and thanks for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, Arun. काफी सेशन काफी लेट हो गया नेक्स्ट सेशन के लिए, but just I would like to summarize within 1 minute. We have talked about the smart cities, smart buildings, other things. So one thing is very clear from this our panelist. What is the smart city? Smart city is not making only the infrastructure smart, making roads, putting CCTVs and other network, but it is also making our public smart. When our public is smart, they will use our resources reasonably. They will not harm our resources. Recently, we were watching a TV news. Prime Minister has recently inaugurated one highway, one of the finest highway in our country. Immediately after a week, जितने भी उसके अगल बगल के लोहे वगैरह आयरन के था सब वहाँ से लोग उखाड़ के ले गए थे. जितने भी पब्लिक एंट्री वहाँ कोई व्हीकल नहीं पाए, एनिमल्स नहीं पाए, everything was damaged by our public. तो काफ़ी न्यूज़ चल रही थी. तो we need a public also, we need to sensitize the public also that these resources belong to this is your resources and it is only for you. तो एक वो भी जरूरत है कि once public will become smart, definitely city will become smart. Second point of concern was that the sustainability, because any project need a fund to sustain this. Recently we had a training with the London police, and where they told us in that particular year, in somewhere around 2012, they got challan through CCTV network and they collected total fine in the tune of, they were able to manage the salary of the whole London police for whole year, for 1 year through CCTV network only. So they are sustaining their project through all these things. Also they are generating their funds by providing football matches bandobast, other cricket matches bandobast. So to sustain any project, grant is needed. So we have to think about that, from where we will get the grant. Recently we are putting CCTV, but after 4 or 5 years we will need fund to this maintenance and other repairing also. Use the data from that to optimize to use it in the favor of the public as well as in the favor of the system. We are just storing the data, not fetching for our use. So for example, what we are doing in our CCTV network, when it was started and now, the traffic violation gone down by 40%. So this is the advantage for us. Initially we were collecting the money 1 lakh rupees per day. Now we are able to collect only 60,000 per day. This is also improvement in the view of the public. Now public is appreciating that now traffic situation is improving. So that is what our CMs have said, happiness index. एक वो भी है कि public must appreciate about our project, what we are doing for the public. And in the last, would like to congratulate RMC Commissioner Sri Pani ji for organizing such a brainstorming session for on smart city and various aspects of the smart city. Definitely it will help us to get some new ideas also, and also for the future vision. Once again, thank you RMC, and just I would like to close this session because the others are waiting. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.